I was kind of fascinated by the people that they chose to interview for the documentary, particularly in the Israeli side of the equation. I didn't see anybody from the Likud side.
No.
What?
I mean, that was interesting. They basically chose people like Ami Ailon, Yossi Beiling, etc. Yuli Tamir are really known as very left-leaning politicians.
Peace Now types.
Peace Now, Labor, Meretz, which is much more left. I'm not sure why I didn't choose anybody from Likud. The one thing that I felt was that it needed more balance in terms of even the personal stories, because if you look at the Israeli perspective, all you really hear from are the politicians. You don't really hear, except for at the end, you don't really hear throughout the documentary from the everyday Israeli, as opposed when you do see the Palestinians' story, you do see personal narrative, personal stories from them. I felt that should have been more balanced, and people would say, well, it's very hard because after every bombing, Israel cleans up the area, etc. But you have places like Sderot that they could have gone, and in 2006, missiles were raining down on that city anyways. But yeah, it's very interesting that they only picked people from the left. What I felt was also somewhat even comical. They chose a random rabbi with the
backdrop of the Western Wall.
And who is this guy? And he suddenly becomes the right-wing speaker. It's as if he was walking down and said, "Hey, can we interview you?" And that's it. There was no context to who he is, what he is, and why. So it was in a way, making documentaries. I've seen that happen. I've worked in documentaries where you kind of need some measure of balance and you throw somebody in. I do think that they should have included people from a brand, from all of the sides in terms of the Israeli political system, but they had an agenda, and their agenda was probably push forward the Geneva kind of mindset, the Geneva
I may be able to speak that in a moment. What did you think of the spokespersons from the Palestinian point of view?
I can agree with that, actually. I think that, I think it's really hard to do anything that is artistic without having a subjective viewpoint of how you view the issue and how you want it to be portrayed, right? So there's that, and of course it had the documentary makers, they had an agenda. So they wanted to show basically the more hopeful side of the issue, the more things peace is possible and pieces can happen now and things like that. So, and that was very evident. But with that said, I don't think that that's a bad thing. because the issue has been portrayed in so many different ways as
impossible, intractable
issue, the thing that the story, the conflict that will never be solved, it's never going to end. So I think it was a fresh,
I think I may be able to cast a little light on the overall perspective. As I was watching it, I noticed that one of the Palestinian spokespersons, under his name, it said IIFWP, the International Interfaith Federation for World Peace. And the march at the end, where everybody's marching together, International Interfaith Federation for World Peace. At the very beginning of our program tonight, I pointed that out to viewers, that was in there. Now, if you look up the International Interfaith Federation for World Peace, which is a grandiose and high-flown sounding name, it's actually a front for the Unification Church. So that's Sun Young Moon. I suspect that they, though I couldn't find out because from our distributor, but I suspect a lot of the money that went into making this originated that organization, and they have a couple of agendas. One of them is everybody wants to see peace in that part of the world. But that they may have another agenda, which is to put their organization on the front page so they work clearly in there.
And that's possible, but again, a documentary that portrays, the issue is not something that is impossible to solve, is not something I would really want to pick too much beef with. So.
I got to ask this because I'm sure viewers are, the woman who told her story that she could not take her sick child across the border to a hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm the leadership in the Palestinian territories, I'm building my own hospitals. Forget you guys. I'm not going to be held hostage to the vagaries of your border policy. I'm building my own hospitals. And furthermore, people in refugee camps 60 years later, you're going to start living in homes. You're going to build you homes. Why isn't that happening?
I think it's not economically sustainable for that to happen. All of that that you just mentioned costs money.
Of course it does, yeah.
It costs, being able to keep it up, and that needs a healthy economy. I don't think that that's available. I don't think that You might disagree with that.
It's not that I disagree. I think that the Palestinian economy right now is doing much better than it did, let's say, 10 years ago. And Nablus and Jenin are booming cities, economically speaking. And so is Ramallah. There's building in Ramallah. I've been there 6 months ago, and there was building there, and there's constant building. One needs to ask, has the money sort of disappeared to?
We've heard some of that.
Yasser Arafat, the great peacemaker that they had in this movie, is suspected to have stolen billions upon billions of dollars from the Palestinian people. Money that should have gone to them since Oslo. In 20 years, it's very odd that they haven't really built an infrastructure, because 20 years is a long time to build that infrastructure, and money has been invested.
Because, it seems to me, historically, the people who lived there, the Palestinian people, were known as amongst the most well-educated people in the Arab world.
And they still are.
They are the most well-educated, the most intelligent, most capable people.
Absolutely.
And I look at the situation.
But most of them, are these people that are still there?
Well, I mean, Palestinian people, many have left.
Yeah.
Make the point.
A lot of them, thank you. A lot of them have, traveled, around the world, and they are the most educated, and they are, very successful, but they're not actually there, and that's also, a barrier to being able to do things. And I understand from the individual's perspective. I mean, if you have the chance to go to, the West and build a better future for your family, why not? But again, it's a double-edged sword. So.
I think that stopping people from getting healthcare and help in Israeli hospitals or hospitals in East Jerusalem is a wrong policy on the Israeli part. There should be a mechanism, and there has been change in checkpoints. There's more coordination with Israelis, etc. But unfortunately, tragedies like this do happen, and there's no excuse for that. There really isn't. I'm not going to sit here to excuse the Israeli government and their policies.
There should be no denying of humanitarian aid. When you got a hospital here and somebody's got a sick baby there, you should never deny them
absolutely, that. Absolutely. At the same time, though, going back to your original question, I think that the reason, for example, in 2006, when this movie was made, that Hamas came to power is not because the Palestinian people like Hamas. It is because all that money that was given to the PLO, to Fatah, to Arafat, to invest in hospital, to invest in infrastructure for the Palestinian people, to take them out of refugees. Why are they still in refugee camps within Palestine right now? All of that money siphoned off, taken, I would say stolen, by the leadership of Fatah, by the PLO, and mostly by Arafat. And there has to be an accountability within Palestine itself. You can't just throw it always on the Israelis. It's the Israelis, it's the Israelis, it's the Israelis. There has to be some internalizing and some accountability in terms of the Palestinians themselves as to what is happening internally with all this money that all of these countries did give us.
But that needs time to build.
Yes.
You need a judicial system that can function properly. You need less men with guns that get their way. So that's going to take some time, and that's going to take some work. And absolutely. I don't think that can happen before a two-state solution is actually implemented.
How do you end up with a second state? What stands in the way of it happening now? I guess the Palestinians have to accept the right of Israel to exist as a state.
I think also the borders, the settlements, and where things have to be exactly just the map, really.
Basically, I mean, the solution is clear to everyone. I've said this publicly in the past, where it's a two-state solution, meaning more or less the borders of 67 with land swap. I don't think you can move settlements, which are now, you think settlements, you think of your caravans. They're not. We're talking, Ma'ale Adumim is a 50,000 city, citizenship.
You've got images of that, yeah.
So it's not as if you can move them. Swapping land, and for the most part, what Olmert offered Abbas in 2007 was, in which the Geneva Accord is that they've had. They built is what the two-state solution is going to be. Issues like Jerusalem are going to be discussed. They're going to be thorny issues, but there's ways to get around that. It is, though, for Israelis, can Fatah, can the PLO guarantee security? And many Israelis would say that Gaza, as a test case, showcase that they can't. Because if Hamas can take over Gaza within 72 hours like they did through the violent, vicious coup, what's stopping them from taking over the West Bank and then basically saying, well, we never signed this. We don't believe in the right of the state of Israel to exist, as Ishmael Haniyeh, the Hamas prime minister, said very recently. what's stopping them from then taking over and basically enacting in West Bank what they're doing in Gaza right now? And that is really the biggest Israeli concern. And it's not a concern, people say, well, come on, that's not a big deal. It is a huge deal when you suddenly have missiles falling on you. And then how do you react? Do you react like you do in Gaza and get condemned? That is a huge Israeli concern that a lot of people sort of just want to brush over and not look and just say, don't worry about it, do it, and just, you'll see years down the road, it's going to be okay.
Final word is yours.
I think I absolutely agree with you. It is a very big concern, and I think what has happened in Gaza is not something that can be overlooked. But I think if no one does anything, and the situation continues to go the way it is right now, anger and hatred is just going to build up, and that's really what these guys are that's their biggest resource.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
100%.
So if I don't know if Fatah is capable of policing a state or a proper judicial system and all of that, but I think it takes time.
It takes time, and that's what we're out of right now. We're going to take a break. We'll be back soon.